KaraokeBooks.
Ivanhoe. Written by Walter Scott. Audiobook. Chapter 36. Say not my art is fraud, all live by seeming. The beggar begs with it, and the gay courtier gains land and title, rank and rule, by seeming. The clergy scorn it not, and the bold soldier will eke with it his service. All admit it, all practice it, and he who is content with showing what he is, shall have small credit. In church, or camp, or state, so wags the world. Old play. Albert Malvoisin, president, or, in the language of the order, preceptor of the establishment of Templestowe, was brother to that Philip Malvoisin who has been already occasionally mentioned in this history, and was, like that baron, in close league with Brian de Bois Guilbert. Amongst dissolute and unprincipled men, of whom the Temple order included but too many, Albert of Templestowe might be distinguished, but with this difference from the audacious Bois Guilbert, that he knew how to throw over his vices and his ambition the veil of hypocrisy, and to assume in his exterior the fanaticism which he internally despised. Had not the arrival of the Grand Master been so unexpectedly sudden, he would have seen nothing at Templestowe which might have appeared to argue any relaxation of discipline. And, even although surprised, and, to a certain extent, detected, Albert Malvoisin listened with such respect and apparent contrition to the rebuke of his superior, and made such haste to reform the particulars he censured, succeeded, in fine, so well in giving an air of ascetic devotion to a family which had been lately devoted to license and pleasure, that Lucas Beaumanoir began to entertain a higher opinion of the preceptor's morals, than the first appearance of the establishment had inclined him to adopt. But these favourable sentiments on the part of the Grand Master were greatly shaken by the intelligence that Albert had received within a house of religion the Jewish captive, and, as was to be feared, the paramour of a brother of the order, and when Albert appeared before him, he was regarded with unwonted sternness. There is in this mansion, dedicated to the purposes of the Holy Order of the Temple, said the Grand Master, in a severe tone, a Jewish woman, brought hither by a brother of religion, by your connivance, Sir Preceptor. Albert Malvoisin was overwhelmed with confusion, for the unfortunate Rebecca had been confined in a remote and secret part of the building, and every precaution used to prevent her residence there from being known. He read in the looks of Beaumanoir ruin to Bois Guilbert and to himself, unless he should be able to avert the impending storm. "Why are you mute?" continued the Grand Master. "Is it permitted to me to reply?" answered the preceptor, in a tone of the deepest humility, although by the question he only meant to gain an instant's space for arranging his ideas. "Speak, you are permitted," said the Grand Master, "speak, and say, knowest thou the capital of our holy rule, decam malitionibus templi in sancta civitate, qui cum miserimus mulieribus versantur, propter oblectationem carnis?" "Surely, most reverend Father," answered the preceptor, "I have not risen to this office in the order, being ignorant of one of its most important prohibitions. How comes it, then, I demand of thee once more, that thou hast suffered a brother to bring a paramour, and that paramour a Jewish sorceress, into this holy place, to the stain and pollution thereof?" "A Jewish sorceress!" echoed Albert Malvoisin. "Good angels guard us!" "Ay, brother, a Jewish sorceress," said the Grand Master, sternly. "I have said it. Darest thou deny that this Rebecca, the daughter of that wretched usurer Isaac of York, and the pupil of the foul witch Miriam, is now, shame to be thought or spoken, lodged within this thy preceptory? Your wisdom, reverend Father," answered the preceptor, "hath rolled away the darkness from my understanding. Much did I wonder that so good a knight as Brian de Bois Guilbert seemed so fondly besotted on the charms of this female, whom I received into this house merely to place a bar betwixt their growing intimacy, which else might have been cemented at the expense of the fall of our valiant and religious brother. Hath nothing, then, as yet passed betwixt them in breach of his vow?" demanded the Grand Master. "What?" Under this roof? Said the preceptor, crossing himself, Saint Magdalene and the 10,000 virgins forbid. No. If I have sinned in receiving her here, it was in the erring thought that I might thus break off our brother's besotted devotion to this Jewess, which seemed to me so wild and unnatural, that I could not but ascribe it to some touch of insanity, more to be cured by pity than reproof. But since your reverend wisdom hath discovered this Jewish queen to be a sorceress, perchance it may account fully for his enamoured folly. It dith, said Beaumenor. See, brother Conrade, the peril of yielding to the first devices and blandishments of Satan. We look upon woman only to gratify the lust of the eye, and to take pleasure in what men call her beauty. And the ancient enemy, the devouring lion, obtains power over us, to complete, by talisman and spell, a work which was begun by idleness and folly. It may be that our brother Bois Guilbert does in this matter deserve rather pity than severe chastisement, rather the support of the staff, than the strokes of the rod, and that our admonitions and prayers may turn him from his folly, and restore him to his brethren. It were deep pity, said Conrade Montfichet, to lose to the order one of its best lances, when the holy community most requires the aid of its sons. 300 Saracens hath this Brian de Bois Guilbert slain with his own hand. The blood of these accursed dogs, said the Grand Master, shall be a sweet and acceptable offering to the saints and angels whom they despise and blaspheme, and with their aid will we counteract the spells and charms with which our brother is entwined as in a net. He shall burst the bands of this Delilah, as Samson burst the 2 new cords with which the Philistines had bound him, and shall slaughter the infidels, even heaps upon heaps. But concerning this foul witch, who hath flung her enchantments over a brother of the holy temple, assuredly she shall die the death. But the laws of England, said the preceptor, who, though delighted that the Grand Master's resentment, thus fortunately averted from himself and Bois Guilbert, had taken another direction, began now to fear he was carrying it too far. The laws of England, interrupted Beaumenor, permit and enjoin each judge to execute justice within his own jurisdiction. The most petty baron may arrest, try, and condemn a witch found within his own domain. And shall that power be denied to the Grand Master of the Temple within a preceptory of his order? No. We will judge and condemn. The witch shall be taken out of the land, and the wickedness thereof shall be forgiven. Prepare the castle hall for the trial of the sorceress. Albert Malvoisin bowed and retired, not to give directions for preparing the hall, but to seek out Brian de Bois Guilbert, and communicate to him how matters were likely to terminate. It was not long ere he found him, foaming with indignation at a repulse he had anew sustained from the fair Jewess. The unthinking, he said, the ungrateful, to scorn him who, amidst blood and flames, would have saved her life at the risk of his own. By heaven, Malvoisin! I abode until roof and rafters crackled and crashed around me. I was the butt of 100 arrows, they rattled on mine armor like hailstones against a latticed casement, and the only use I made of my shield was for her protection. This did I endure for her, and now the self-willed girl upbraids me that I did not leave her to perish, and refuses me not only the slightest proof of gratitude, but even the most distant hope that ever she will be brought to grant any. The devil, that possessed her race with obstinacy, has concentrated its full force in her single person. The devil, said the preceptor, I think, possessed you both. How oft have I preached to you caution, if not continence? Did I not tell you that there were enough willing Christian damsels to be met with, who would think it sin to refuse so brave a knight, la donne de moru merci, and you must needs anchor your affection on a wilful, obstinate Jewess. By the mass, I think old Lucas Beaumenor guesses right, when he maintains she hath cast a spell over you. Lucas Beaumenor, said Bois Guilbert reproachfully, are these your precautions, Malvoisin? Hast thou suffered the dotard to learn that Rebecca is in the preceptory? How could I help it? Said the preceptor. I neglected nothing that could keep secret your mystery, but it is betrayed, and whether by the devil or no, the devil only can tell. But I have turned the matter as I could. You are safe if you renounce Rebecca. You are pitied, the victim of magical delusion. She is a sorceress, and must suffer as such. She shall not, by heaven, said Bois Guilbert. By heaven, she must and will, said Malvoisin. Neither you nor anyone else can save her. Lucas Beaumanoir hath settled that the death of a Jewess will be a sin offering sufficient to atone for all the amorous indulgences of the Knights Templars, and thou knowest he hath both the power and will to execute so reasonable and pious a purpose. Will future ages believe that such stupid bigotry ever existed? Said Bois Guilbert, striding up and down the apartment. What they may believe, I know not, said Malvoisin, calmly, but I know well, that in this our day, clergy and laymen, take 99 to the 100, will cry, Amen, to the Grand Master's sentence. I have it, said Bois Guilbert. Albert, thou art my friend. Thou must connive at her escape, Malvoisin, and I will transport her to some place of greater security and secrecy. I cannot, if I would, replied the preceptor. The mansion is filled with the attendants of the Grand Master, and others who are devoted to him. And, to be frank with you, brother, I would not embark with you in this matter, even if I could hope to bring my bark to haven. I have risked enough already for your sake. I have no mind to encounter a sentence of degradation, or even to lose my preceptory, for the sake of a painted piece of Jewish flesh and blood. And you, if you will be guided by my counsel, will give up this wild goose chase, and fly your hawk at some other game. Think, Bois Guilbert, thy present rank, thy future honours, all depend on thy place in the order. Shouldst thou adhere perversely to thy passion for this Rebecca, thou wilt give Beaumanoir the power of expelling thee, and he will not neglect it. He is jealous of the truncheon which he holds in his trembling gripe, and he knows thou stretchest thy bold hand towards it. Doubt not he will ruin thee, if thou affordest him a pretext so fair as thy protection of a Jewish sorceress. Give him his scope in this matter, for thou canst not control him. When the staff is in thine own firm grasp, thou mayest caress the daughters of Judah, or burn them, as may best suit thine own humour. Malvoisin, said Bois Guilbert, thou art a cold-blooded friend, said the preceptor, hastening to fill up the blank, in which Bois Guilbert would probably have placed a worse word. A cold-blooded friend I am, and therefore more fit to give thee advice. I tell thee once more, that thou canst not save Rebecca. I tell thee once more, thou canst but perish with her. Go hie thee to the Grand Master, throw thyself at his feet and tell him. Not at his feet, by heaven. But to the dotard's very beard will I say. Say to him, then, to his beard, continued Malvoisin, coolly, that you love this captive Jewess to distraction. And the more thou dost enlarge on thy passion, the greater will be his haste to end it by the death of the fair enchantress. While thou, taken in flagrant delict by the avowal of a crime contrary to thine oath, canst hope no aid of thy brethren, and must exchange all thy brilliant visions of ambition and power, to lift perhaps a mercenary spear in some of the petty quarrels between Flanders and Burgundy. Thou speakest the truth, Malvoisin, said Brian de Bois Guilbert, after a moment's reflection. I will give the hoary bigot no advantage over me, and for Rebecca, she hath not merited at my hand that I should expose rank and honour for her sake. I will cast her off, yes, I will leave her to her fate, unless— Qualify not thy wise and necessary resolution, said Malvoisin. Women are but the toys which amuse our lighter hours. Ambition is the serious business of life. Perish 1,000 such frail baubles as this Jewess, before thy manly step pause in the brilliant career that lies stretched before thee. For the present we part, nor must we be seen to hold close conversation. I must order the hall for his judgment seat. What? Said Bois Guilbert, so soon? Aye, replied the preceptor, trial moves rapidly on when the judge has determined the sentence beforehand. Rebecca, said Bois Guilbert, when he was left alone, thou art like to cost me dear. Why cannot I abandon thee to thy fate, as this calm hypocrite recommends? One effort will I make to save thee, but beware of ingratitude. For if I am again repulsed, my vengeance shall equal my love. The life and honor of Bois Guilbert must not be hazarded, where contempt and reproaches are his only reward. The preceptor had hardly given the necessary orders, when he was joined by Conrade Montfichet, who acquainted him with the Grand Master's resolution to bring the Jewess to instant trial for sorcery. It is surely a dream, said the preceptor. We have many Jewish physicians, and we call them not wizards though they work wonderful cures. The Grand Master thinks otherwise, said Montfichet, and, Albert, I will be upright with thee, wizard or not, it were better that this miserable damsel die, than that Brian de Bois Guilbert should be lost to the order, or the order divided by internal dissension. Thou knowest his high rank, his fame in arms, thou knowest the zeal with which many of our brethren regard him, but all this will not avail him with our Grand Master, should he consider Brian as the accomplice, not the victim, of this Jewess. Were the souls of the 12 tribes in her single body, it were better she suffered alone, than that Bois Guilbert were partner in her destruction. I have been working him even now to abandon her, said Malvoisin, but still, are there grounds enough to condemn this Rebecca for sorcery? Will not the Grand Master change his mind when he sees that the proofs are so weak? They must be strengthened, Albert, replied Montfichet, they must be strengthened. Dost thou understand me? I do, said the preceptor, nor do I scruple to do aught for advancement of the order, but there is little time to find engines fitting. Malvoisin, they must be found, said Conrade. Well will it advantage both the order and thee. This Templestowe is a poor preceptory, that of Maison Dieu is worth double its value. Thou knowest my interest with our old chief. Find those who can carry this matter through, and thou art preceptor of Maison Dieu in the fertile Kent. How sayst thou? There is, replied Malvoisin, among those who came hither with Bois Guilbert, 2 fellows whom I well know. Servants they were to my brother Philip de Malvoisin, and passed from his service to that of Front de Boeuf. It may be they know something of the witcheries of this woman. Away, seek them out instantly, and hark thee, if a byzant or 2 will sharpen their memory, let them not be wanting. They would swear the mother that bore them a sorceress for a zecchin, said the preceptor. Away, then, said Montfichet, at noon the affair will proceed. I have not seen our senior in such earnest preparation since he condemned to the stake Hamet Alfagi, a convert who relapsed to the Moslem faith. The ponderous castle bell had tolled the point of noon, when Rebecca heard a trampling of feet upon the private stair which led to her place of confinement. The noise announced the arrival of several persons, and the circumstance rather gave her joy, for she was more afraid of the solitary visits of the fierce and passionate Bois Guilbert than of any evil that could befall her besides. The door of the chamber was unlocked, and Conrade and the preceptor Malvoisin entered, attended by 4 warders clothed in black, and bearing halberds. Daughter of an accursed race, said the preceptor, arise and follow us. Whither, said Rebecca, and for what purpose? Damsel, answered Conrade, it is not for thee to question, but to obey. Nevertheless, be it known to thee, that thou art to be brought before the tribunal of the Grand Master of our holy order, there to answer for thine offences. May the God of Abraham be praised, said Rebecca, folding her hands devoutly. The name of a judge, though an enemy to my people, is to me as the name of a protector. Most willingly do I follow thee. Permit me only to wrap my veil around my head. They descended the stair with slow and solemn step, traversed a long gallery, and, by a pair of folding doors placed at the end, entered the great hall in which the Grand Master had for the time established his court of justice. The lower part of this ample apartment was filled with squires and yeomen, who made way not without some difficulty for Rebecca, attended by the preceptor and Montfichet, and followed by the guard of halberdiers, to move forward to the seat appointed for her. As she passed through the crowd, Her arms folded and her head depressed, a scrap of paper was thrust into her hand, which she received almost unconsciously, and continued to hold without examining its contents. The assurance that she possessed some friend in this awful assembly gave her courage to look around, and to mark into whose presence she had been conducted. She gazed, accordingly, upon the scene, which we shall endeavor to describe in the next chapter.
Karaoke Books.